So I'm going to open the file. And when you open it, yours won't look exactly like this because I've made my print a little bit bigger than what yours would be. Your font size is smaller, but I made it so that you could kind of see what I was doing more easily. The first thing we're going to do, this worksheet right here actually is one that we worked on before. It'll look familiar to you. It's this worksheet right here. And I've taken all of that data that's on that worksheet and listed it in here. And the other one is the Disney Movies worksheet, which looks like this one. And I've taken all of that data and put it on this tab. So we've got the information for both those worksheets. I will return those worksheets to you at the end of class today. I did not take a grade on either one of those because people were having a lot of trouble doing that, and I was basically looking at that time just to see whether or not you had gotten things figured out. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing the Excel stuff now so that you can go back over it, because those were things that could wait a little bit. So taking the Old Faithful work data, what I want to do is I'm going to show you some real basic things to do in Excel to help you do this. There's nothing that the calculator does that Excel can't do. It just has to do it a different way. The calculator's handy. It's more portable, but Excel lets you print. And at some point, you're going to need to print. So the first thing we might want to do with this data is I'm going to show you how to copy data from one place to the next, because one of the things that I have learned is that once you mess it up, you don't have the original anymore. So you don't really want that to happen to you. So I'm going to have you to highlight all of column A. Just click on the letter A, and it'll put a box around everything that's in column A, all the way to the bottom where you can't even see it. So highlight that and click the copy up here. Copy is right next to paste. It's between the scissors and the paintbrush. Now there's a shortcut you can use too. You can right-click after you've highlighted it and tell it to copy. And it looks exactly the same. No, you don't want it to copy as picture. Just tell it you want it to copy. And when you do, you'll see a little marquee-like borders sparkling around those numbers. So that means they've been copied. I'm going to paste those numbers into column C. So I'm going to highlight column C, and I'm going to click paste. Okay? It will be. The very first one will be, because that's where your cursor's sitting right now. That's okay. Click on the letter C and then click paste. It's going to have to be on C, I think. There you go. Click paste up there, or right click and click paste, either one. There you go. Okay? So we have two copies of the data. That way if we mess up one of them doing something, then we've got a clean copy we can go back to. Now the first thing I want to show you how to do is how to do some descriptive statistics in Excel, just so that you know kind of what Excel can and can't do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, let's say in column G, or wherever, somewhere over here away from the data, and I want to do some descriptive statistics. So I'm going to type in the words that Excel uses for some of these, as well as the word we know it by. So one of the things that I want is the mean. And Excel calls that average. Yeah, I just hit enter, and this is actually bleeding over to the next column, but that doesn't matter. So in the next one, I'm going to tell it I want to find the mode. And Excel has different kinds of mode. It has a mode or mode.mult, which means there's more than one. Even if you choose that second one, it's only going to show you one mode. It quits after it shows you the first one. Excel is very lazy about some things. We want to be able to find standard deviation. What Excel calls that is stdev.s or just stdev, and it's all capital letters to Excel. Okay, you're ready. Parentheses. You need to add parentheses to keep typing. Okay, so we did the mean, the mode, the standard deviation. We might want the 5-number summary. The minimum. Excel calls that capital M-I-N, min. Q1. Excel calls that the quartile. Be nice if I actually spelled it right. It calls it the quartile, and you'll have to tell it within that command which one it is. And when we come there, I'll show you how you tell it which one it is. So quartile 1, then maybe the median. Which Excel calls, oddly enough, the median. And then quartile 3. And again, we're going to go back to quartile to get that one. And then the max. The maximum data value, which Excel calls MAX, max. So those are some statistics that we're going to learn how to find. You can also find variance and some other things too, but these are the basic ones, and I'm just wanting to kind of get your feet wet today. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our cursor in column F at the very top next to the word mean. Now, if you're not caught up to me, raise your hand. I'll give you time to get caught up. Okay. We'll take a couple of minutes. How many of y'all have used Excel before? Most of you? Some of what I'm showing you may not have ever done before, but a lot of it you will have done before. Yeah, most people have used it for a little something, maybe not for statistics, but using it for statistics, if you already know how to use it, is really easy. Now, we're going to find all of these formulas that we have here, and they're going to be on that button that says FX. And there's a couple of different ways we can use that formula. We can access it by choosing the statistical menu and going and look through a list of all of them. The other thing that we can do when we get there is we're going to be able just to type in the name of what we want, and Excel will find it for us. But we're going to have to use Excel's word for it because Excel's not really good at understanding our words sometimes. Now, I'll probably go through each one of these maybe a couple of times to give people a chance to get caught up. So click your FX button, and it opens up what's called a dialog box. Some of the things we want you may see in that box below because they've recently been used, like, for example, the word average. It's already there, so we could pick it from there. The other thing you can do is to click on the drop-down menus where it says select a category and choose statistical. And statistical shows you every different statistical formula that Excel knows how to do, which if you scroll on that list, you see that's a lot. But the most efficient way just to get something quick, since we've only got a short list of what we want to find, we're just going to come over here, and I'm going to move this out of the way so you can still see what I'm looking at. We're just going to come over here, and we want to find the mean, and we know Excel calls it the average, so we're going to type in average and tell it to find it. And it brings it right to the top. So we're going to say, okay, that's the formula I want, and what it wants to know here is where are your numbers that are your data? Where in this spreadsheet is this data located? And I've got it located in two different places. I don't want to mess up the first column at all, so I'm just going to choose column C and tell it OK. And it tells me that the mean is 127.2. Right. Let me walk through it one more time, because this is going to be the same process over and over again. You click your FX button, you tell it what you want up here, you type in average, and it'll bring it right to the top of the list. So then you make sure that it's highlighted, and you click OK. And then once you click OK, it says, okay, this is the average formula, and right now it's only looking at cell C1 to F1, which may or may not be what I want it to look at. I want it to look at everything in column C. So I highlighted all of column C and told it OK, and it's picking out all these numbers, and it returns the answer, which is 127.2. Get it? Click on the letter above it. You can click and drag to the bottom, but usually, since all the data is in one column, I just select the column. Okay, the next one we want is the mode. So we put the cursor in the empty box in front of mode and click the FX button, and we type mode and tell it go find it. Now it brings up mode, mode mult, and mode single. Mode returns the most frequently occurring or repetitive values in the array, which is what we know that the mode is. If you do mode mult, it gives you, it's supposed to give you all the modes. Well, I've learned that no matter how much they say that it does, it don't. It's still only going to find the first one. You're going to have to find the second one yourself. So this is not one of the greatest features that Excel has. But we're going to click on OK and tell it that we want it to look in column C and tell us what the mode is. Now, if you look in the box right here, it says that the modes are 120 and 130. But when you click OK, the only thing it shows you is the 120. And no amount of widening that column or anything else is going to make it tell you anything else. It's going to say 120, but it's not just 120. In a little while, I'll show you how I know it's also 130. So this is my word of warning to you. Don't trust Excel to find the mode. It's lazy. It'll find it, but it won't show you but one of them. Standard deviation is easy. You click your FX button. You type in what you want to find. STDDEV. Tell it go fetch it. It didn't like mine. So I asked it to find standard deviation. And it did find it now. Now, it's given me several of these. It's given me STDEVA. That's actually called the average deviation. That's not what we want. STDEVP, we're not going to worry about that either. STDEV gives us the estimate of the population standard deviation based on the sample. It's exactly the same thing as what STDEV.S does. If you click let me go back and get it back up there again. If you choose STDEV with a P after it, notice it says it calculates standard deviation based on the entire population. So it's assuming, if I choose that I've got the population every time that Old Faithful ever erupted, which is obviously not just what we've got here. So that's not what I want. MODE.MULT. Are you not getting the mode? Because you haven't told it where the data is. That's that. Okay, now you've got to click on column C every time. Now your cursor's where it needs to be. Close it out. That's got the little box. It's trying to help you. It's just making it work. Okay, now click on the Remember, it's always the same process every time. You pick what you need. I want standard deviation, not of a population. I want standard deviation of a sample, which is either STDEV or STDEVS. Both of those work the same. Tell it okay, but then the next thing you have to do is you have to go and tell it where the data is. So you have to click on column C. Otherwise, it's going to try to do something that's not possible for it to do. So you always click on the column where the data is and then tell it okay. And it says our standard deviation is 13.15. And then we want to find the minimum. Click your FX button and type min, and just go, and it brings it right on up. So you tell it okay, and then once again, you've got to go back to column C. And tell it okay, and it says the minimum value is 95. And then we'll hop down here to the maximum, and we'll click FX and type max. Tell it to go, and it finds the maximum. And you go back and click on column C. You always got to tell it where the data is. And it says that's 150. Then we'll do the quartiles. If you go to Q1, click your FX button. Type in the word quartile. And it brings up a couple of different quartiles, but you're going to use the one that just says quartile. So you click OK. And you tell it where the numbers are, but this time we've got to add something more. Besides telling it that my numbers are in column C, I have to tell it which quartile I want. And if you read right here, it says quart is a number, minimum value equals 0, first quartile equals 1, median value equals 2, third quartile equals 3, maximum value equals 4. So you can get all 5 of your 5-number summary using the quartile command. This one I'm wanting the first quartile, so I just type the number 1 in that second box. And I'll go ahead and click OK. I don't have one at all. We might check and see if this one is there. And we want to do the third quartile. You click in the box in front of Q3. Click your FX button. You're still on quartile, so tell it OK. Show it where the data is, and tell it the third quartile. And tell it OK. Now, the median you can do 2 different ways. You can use the quartile command with the number 2. I'll come out here and do that one. FX, I'm already on quartile, so I'll tell it OK. Tell it my data's in column C, and I want quartile 2, which is the same as the median, and tell it OK, and it says it's 130. Or I can click the FX button and type in MEDIAN, and it finds the formula for the median. Got to tell it where the data is, and tell it OK. And notice I got the same value both times because it knows how to do it both ways. And it should be the same thing. Q2 and the median are exactly the same thing. Okay? The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a histogram. But in order to make our lives easier to make that histogram, I'm going to show you how to do something with the data that we've done on the calculator before, and it works the same way in Excel. So we're going to learn a couple of different things. First thing we need to do is go back here and look at this handout and say, how many classes did they want us to make? Because we're going to need to know that. So it says, make a frequency distribution consisting of 6 classes. Okay. That means that we need to have 6 classes. We're going to use that to find the class width. Now, we can use what we've got right here to find the class width. Because first thing we need to do is find the range. And the range is 150 minus 95. And if I start that out with an equal in front of it, it'll actually do that subtraction for me. So equals 150 minus 95, and hit enter. And it says, oh, that's 55. And we're going to take that and divide by 6 and round up. So our class width is going to equal 55 divided by 6. Hit enter, and it says it's 9.167. And we know we need to round that to 10. So our class width is going to be 10. And I'm just highlighting some important information here with red, because this is all related to finding the class width. So our class width was 10. You do have to round up. You always, always, always round up. So now we're going to start building the classes. We've got to figure out, we know what the minimum is. It's 95. So we're going to do the lower class limits, LCL. And then we'll do the upper class limits, UCL. And the first lower class limit is going to be 95 for that 95 up here. And then we need to add 10 going all the way down. Now, if you can do that in your head, that works fine. If you don't want to do it in your head, Excel will do it for you. Equals 95 plus 10. Equals 105 plus 10. Equals 115 plus 10. Equals 125 plus 10. Equals 135 plus 10. So there's all the rest of my lower class limits. Here's my 6 classes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I need the upper class limits. If this starts at 105, this one ended at 104. And this one ended at 114. And this one at 124. And this one at 134. And this one at 144. And then this one, because it's all 10 apart, would be 154. So there's your lower and upper class limits. And then in the next column, I'm going to find what the midpoints are because I'm going to use those to label the histogram. And midpoints are something we need to remember how to do. So I'm just going to call that mid-PTS. And I'm not going to do the calculations in here because I want to use these as labels, and Excel will not take calculations to be labels. You have to have actual just numbers typed in there for it to be labeled. So I'm going to come down here just a little bit below and kind of remind myself how to find midpoint. And the way you do it is you add the LCL to the UCL. And you want to do that first, so I put parentheses around that. And then you want to divide that by 2. So, for example, for my first one, my first midpoint would be equal to 95 plus 104. That 95 and that 104. And divide by 2. And I forgot my second parenthesis, so I've got to go fix that because it was upset about that. So 95 plus 104 in parentheses divided by 2. And it will do that for me. The first midpoint is 99.5. And that means the next one would be 109.5, 119.5, 129.5, 139.5, and 149.5, because the class width is still 10. So you were just adding 10 all the way down. And it didn't get my 4. Let me put my 4 in there. So I've got all the midpoints now. And now it's time to figure out the frequencies. Now the frequencies means I'm going to have to count the data. I could count the data going up and down this list and take forever and probably mess it up. So what I'm going to do before I start counting is I'm going to highlight column C. Just click at the top of column C. And then come up toward the top of the page over toward the right-hand side. And you'll see a little funnel with A and Z next to it. This is the sort and filter menu. What we want to do is we want to sort from smallest to largest. That'll be the first thing on the drop-down menu. So we want to sort those numbers in column C. You have to highlight column C before you click this. You have to already have column C highlighted, otherwise it doesn't know what you're working on. So you select your data and then you click the sort and filter button and you choose sort smallest to largest. And it does it instantly. So everybody should be seeing 95, 95, 110, 110, 110, 115, 115, and so forth. And this is the place that we can actually verify, because there was let's see, this says the count of those was 8 120s. But if you come on down here and just click and drag till you get all the 130s, it says there's 8 of those also. So the mode really was 120 and 130. So it's actually both of those. Now that we've got it sorted, we're ready to put our frequencies in this column. So I need to know which numbers are between 95 and 104, and that's just these two. And if you want, you can kind of give yourself a good visual by telling it to fill that in with some color. So I know I've got two there. And then the next group is 105 to 114, and there's three of those. So I'll make those orange. And then it goes 115 to 124. That would be all of those. So they can be green. And there are 10 of those. I'm just looking down here at the bottom of the page. This says the count is 10. And then my next group goes from 125 to 134. So that'd be all of those guys there. And it says there's 12 of those. And then 135 to 144. I'll make those blue. And it says there's 9 down here at the bottom. And then I see that I've only got 4 left. What do we know the frequency should add up to? If I add the frequencies, all those up, what should I get? Because it looks to me like there's 40 pieces of data here. The last one is in row 40. So should this add up to 40? Okay. Click below the number 4. Come up here at the top where it says Auto Sum. Click that. Notice that it picks up all the numbers that are right above that. Hit Enter. And it says, yes, they add up to 40. Sure. Just go to the bottom of the frequencies below the last number. Go up here at the top of the page next to where the little sorting funnel is and click Auto Sum. And it says equal sum, and it tells in there inside of it that this is I-16 to I-21. This is I-16, I-17, I-18, I-19, I-20, and I-21. So it's going to add whatever's in those cells up and tell me what it adds up to. So it says there's 40. And that's what it should be. Should be 40. Now you can make this look a lot nicer if you want to. You can just highlight your data table and come up here and make little borders on it. I put borders around it. You don't have to. That's not part of the statistics, but it's easier to read. Makes it look nicer. What I really want to do with it, though, is I want to make a histogram. And the histogram is a multi-step process. So the way that we're going to start the histogram is the first thing we're going to do is highlight the frequencies, not the midpoints or any of that other stuff, not the whole table, just the frequencies. Okay? I just highlighted all those numbers, and then up here right above the word font, there's a little box that says all borders. And I picked out the one that just said all. You can have no borders, you can only border on the right or the left, or you can put a thick border on the outside of the box, which is what I just did. But it's just right above the word font. It's a little picture of borders on the cells. So we're ready to make a histogram? Hmm? You can watch it. That'll be okay. So you highlight your frequencies. And what we want to do is insert a chart. So you click the insert button. And you come over here to where it says charts. About halfway over. Look for the part in the middle that says charts. And up above that is all the different charts that Excel knows how to make that are basic statistics charts. The one we want looks like that one. See which one? Excel calls it a column chart. You know, columns are what you have in the south on your front porch. Rows are what goes across the field. So we want a column chart. And if you click that button, pick the very first thing you see. We don't want anything fancy. We want something simple. So just click the very first one, and you should have a chart now, but it don't look much like a histogram. Now, one more time, in case you got lost and you didn't follow along, choose your frequencies, go to the insert, go to the charts, pick the column chart, that's the one that looks like a histogram, and pick it. Just click on it. Now, there's a whole bunch of other stuff up here that we can do with it, but you got to get the chart first. And I'm going to drag mine over here to the side so I can see it better. And I'm also going to make it bigger so y'all can see it better. And I'm going to increase the size of the font. You don't need to do this. I'm doing this just so you can see better. Now you can see my chart better. And we'll just focus on this for a minute. Now, there's several things wrong with this chart. This is just a basic, no frills, nothing added chart. But by the fact that we're sitting on it, it's got a white border around it, and it lit up a new menu called Chart Tools that we wouldn't have seen before. On your chart tools, you have two different things. You have format tools, and then you have design tools. The first thing I want to do is use the format tool. And you can add things from the chart area. You can tell it to format some of these things. I'm going to take a shortcut because I know a quicker way than having to dig through menus to do a lot of this stuff, so I'm going to show you the shortcuts. The first thing I want to do, the first thing that bothers me about this is that those bars are not supposed to have that big gap between them. They're supposed to touch each other. Remember? So put your cursor on any one of the bars you want to, doesn't matter which one. Put it right on top of one of the bars and right-click. That means click the right mouse button, not the left mouse button. Right-click and go down and tell it to format the data series. And it'll bring up this little menu over here. And it brings up exactly what I need to fix because it says there's a gap, and that 219% is what's making that big wide space between those bars. I don't want it to make a space between the bars. I want there to be no space. So I'm going to change that to 0. And as soon as I do, it closes up the gap. It spreads the bars out until they run into each other nice and even. So now it's a histogram. But if I don't do something else to it, and I click off of it, this just looks like a big blue blob to me. I can't see the distinctions between the bars now. So what I'm going to do is come back over here where it says Format and click the Line command and tell it I would like a solid line. well, I'm not sitting on my chart. Got to do that first. Till I like a solid line, and I would like for that line to be black. So now if I click off my chart, I can see my bars well outlined. I can read it better. Some other things that I'd like to do, I'm going to click back on the chart again, is I would like to go to the design part of it and talk about adding chart elements. Just click on one of the bars and then go under the little paint can where it says border. So one of the things I want to fix is I want to fix my axis titles. My primary horizontal axis needs to be titled length of eruptions, and that's measured in minutes. So I'll type length of eruptions and then in parentheses minutes. And when I hit enter, it changes my axis title down here to length of eruptions in minutes. And then the other one I want to change is I would like to put one on the vertical axis. And I need that to say frequency. And then I'd like to add a chart title above the chart. I want something that describes what this chart's about. So I'm going to say that that's Old Faithful eruption times. So now I can tell what the chart's about. I can tell kind of the general shape of the chart. I can tell that it's skewed a little bit to the left. But there's still one problem with this chart. Does anybody notice what it is? Now this says 1, so is that 1 minute? And 2 minutes and 3 minutes? Because there weren't any eruption times like that. Our eruption times were like 99.5, 109.5, 119.5. Where it says chart element up here under file. Okay? So how am I going to get rid of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And put what I want to be in there, which is these midpoints right here. Now there are menus you can dig through and find this, but this is the shortcut way. This way you don't have to remember every single menu. If you will click on one of the numbers, any one of them, click on any one of the numbers that are the units on the x-axis, and then right-click. You click it first to select it, then you right-click to bring up the menu. And on that menu, what you want to do is you want to do something called Select Data. Be sure that you have highlighted these axis values. Do not have your bars highlighted. You will wreck your chart. Be sure that you're only highlighting the numbers at the bottom of the bars. And then right-click. And go to Select Data. Okay? Now, if you look over here on that menu, this is where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want to change that. So we're going to edit and tell it where the labels really are. So now it put the midpoints underneath each bar. Okay? So when I click OK, I have a really good looking chart. And I can actually put a line around the whole chart now, I think. Yeah, so I've got a border around the whole chart. Now, did everybody get their labels? If you didn't, I'll go through it again. Okay, let's do it again. I'm going to undo the labels. Put your cursor at the bottom on one of the category axis labels, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Doesn't matter. You can put it on the 6 if you want to. And click. And then right-click. And then go down to Select Data. Right. And choose Select Data. And right above the OK button, you'll see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, up at the top of that it says Edit. Click the Edit button. And then while that cursor is blinking in that box that says Axis Label Range, go over and click in the cell that says 99.5, hold your mouse down, click and drag down until it says 149.5. And then tell it OK. You have to do that twice. And now it's changed your labels to your midpoints. Okay? And if you want the border on the chart, you just click anywhere in the white part and right-click and tell it to format the chart area and tell it to put a line around it. Yes. So now you've got a histogram. Okay? Everybody doing all right? I'll come help you with that in a minute. This is all that we really need to do right this minute together as a class. What I want you to do is take a little short break if you want to. Then I want you to come over here to the tab that says Disney Movies, and I want you to do everything we just did again. Except I want you to be sure when you're doing your classes on the Disney movies that we want to do 5 classes. Okay? When you're finished at the end of the day, then I'm going to flip the lights on and basically just let you all work the rest of the day on this and then the other labs if you have time. When you finish, be sure and come back up here to where it says File. Choose Save As, and you can go ahead and do this right now. Choose Save As. Find the place that you want to save it. If nothing else, save it to the desktop. And this is how you need to save it. You need to save it to your username, like mine is MRFLINT, and then an underscore, and then Excel Basics. Just save as. No, go to the desktop. Too hard to find, and then type your username and an underscore and Excel Basics. if you're not gonna finish, if you're not thinking you're gonna get finished with it today, be sure to save it, onto a thumb drive or, email it to yourself or do something with it before you leave. You should get finished with it today, because I'm gonna use the rest of the class to work on it. Okay, when you click on the bars, you do, choose format, and you'll go on, and you pick the paint pen, and you can stop the fill with, and you solid line, and you do solid line. It doesn't have to be solid line. Okay? Right click on bars. You're gonna have to, email it to yourself or email or, because you don't have your email with us the next week. I just email it to myself and email that to you, and I'll go back. I'm not emailing it to you. Oh. I like the chart. Nine. Trouble. Okay. You want to- you can't do it from there. You have to type it in that box. And then go into D2L. And open up the email in D2L and click on your name. Go ahead and log into D2L. Okay, you're in D2L right now. Move your find your name.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that's what it is. Oh, okay. It's the guy outside with the weed eater. Yay.
You said that on the airport is out of Spotify?
Mm-hmm. So you're just going to divide by 5 instead of 6. Yes, that reeks. I'll be right there and I'll show you. Let me stop the recording because it doesn't need to record the rest of class.